All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for being here. If for those of you who haven't met Karen, no. Sorry, Karen, I had to do that. You'll miss her screen, you'll miss her face on the screen down here. So anyway, Karen's been with us a long time. Glad to have you back in person. We do have a quorum, and so. Okay, Rick's gonna sit on the back row. He doesn't want to expose anybody to his lingering cold. Although he's getting better.
He can sit at the top.
Yeah, he sit with Todd, okay. So right now we have a quorum, and Rich, is Rich still on the fence? Okay. We have Cindy and Alan online. Tony's not here. Okay, very good. All right. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Thank you, Barb.
And I will second that, David Z.
Thank you, David. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, agenda is approved. Thank you. Is there any public comment for items that are not on the agenda, either by the members of the committee or anyone in the public? Not seeing one, we'll move on. Next is approval of the minutes from last month's meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Larry Tobias moved for the approval of the minutes from last month's CAC meeting.
Do I have a second? Anyone?
Second.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, mine's too.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any approved, any not approved? Nays? I went blank. Not hearing any? Okay, minutes approved. Thank you. Financial reports, Lisa.
The month I'm reporting is for the month of February. We were above the budget by $538,366 or 5.1%. If you go back and look at January, that was also over by 5.1%. Might be too soon to say that's a trend, but that's ironically close.
More than 1 month creates a trend, right?
I suppose. When we look at February of last year to February of this year, we were above the budget by 2.2%, and that equated to $235,902. That's about it. Anyone
Okay.
have any questions?
Any questions for Karen, for Lisa? All right, not seeing anyone. Thank you very much, Lisa. Item number 6, capital maintenance and public transportation contracts, City of Colorado Springs.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the CAC, Gail Stewart with the City of Colorado Springs. Today, the city is presenting 9 contracts for the CAC's consideration and recommendation to the PPRTA board. The first project is for the Mark Shuffle Road project. This is, there is a map included in your packet for this particular project. This is to add $1,455,731.50 to Wilson and Company's contract for engineering services. This will include some design changes focused around new access points and intersection changes, new utility relocations, joint electric and telecommunications duct bank, for permitting, and a continuation of construction management services through February of 2025. Any questions on that particular contract?
Is that project still progressing pretty quickly?
Very, very quickly.
Good.
In fact, you'll probably see me bring one more change order for the construction contractor still in 24, just because we're progressing so rapidly through that project.
Yeah, Jim could.
Oh, Larry.
Yeah, just to follow on with what Jim just said, driving through that Mark Shuffle project, it does seem that they are really moving along well on that and, hopefully maybe ahead of schedule a little bit, but they seem to be moving very well on that project.
Yeah, they are. Thank you. They keep exceeding the expectations on the schedule, hence the reason why I need to come and get more money to make sure we keep them moving along.
That's good. Good problem to have.
The second contract is for a trails project. It's for the Pikes Peak Greenway. The funds would come from the Pikes Peak Greenway program. There is, which is on the A list for PPRTA. There is a map included for this project in your packet. This is to continue to do some works on that trail improvements adjacent to Monument Creek. While they're doing some work in that area, just makes sense for them to do trail improvements there. And it's really there by as a Cottonwood Creek intersection with Pikes Peak Greenway through Mark Dabbling Boulevard. And that's to go to Mueller Engineering for the engineering services for that amount of $79,245.
Are they gonna put electricity down there in that overhang down near where it intersects so that the homeless can have electricity?
I'm going to refrain from commenting. All right, I'm going to move on to item number 3. This is for signal controllers and cabinets. We did go through and approve a contract through PPRTA this past year with Echoline Control Products for this cabinet materials. This would be adding $800,000 for equipment that we could purchase in 2024 to continue those signal efforts. The city's fourth contract is for the Wooten culvert replacement, in particular around guardrails. This was the location of this bridge is included on a map in your packet. This was a bridge that was worked on as part of a fairly significant bridge maintenance activity. And then it's sustained some pretty significant vehicle damage. Right now, we need to go through and do the repairs today where we're going to be preparing the guardrail, the concrete in the area that was damaged, and the bridge rail. We're going to have Blue Ridge Partners come and do that work since they were original contractor. The value of this work would be $26,815. And I will let you know, as with other things, when we have to use maintenance funds to repair damage caused by accidents, we do go and file claims and subjugate those. So those funds, if we're able to recapture them, do come back to PPRTA. The city's fifth contract is for Surrey Seal Maintenance Services. The city has gone through an RFP process to select A1 chip seal. We would like to award them a contract for $995,863 to do slurry seal maintenance activities on 74 roadways. I will let you know this would be funding the option year 1 of this contract.
Gail, I gotta ask a question about slurry seal and that stuff. How long so the difference between slurry seal and the stuff that puts rocks,
Chip seal, which
Chip
we're going to
seal,
talk
right?
about next.
so what are the life expectancy? How much extension do you get on a roadway for each of those?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And a lot of it actually depends on what the underlying condition of the roadway was beforehand and the vehicles that are going to be traveling on that roadway. So it varies. I would say a good range is from 5 to 10 years, to give you an idea.
Okay, thank you.
Just a comment there. I think this is a great step forward to use this preventive maintenance technique, slurry seal. I've been a fan of for many, many years. And I know many, many years ago, mid 1990s, so we're talking, what is that, 25, 30 years ago, the city did a slurry seal on Ellsworth Street in my neighborhood. It's still good. Not fabulous. It needs a slurry seal again, but I'm talking more than 20 years.
Yeah.
It's not unusual. It's great product. And A1, I know from past experiences, is the #1 firm, I believe, in the region. So you've done well, got a good price, got a good firm, got a good product. So I applaud your efforts.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, let's move on to chip seal. The city went through an RFP process to establish a contract for a chip seal provider. A1 chip seal was also selected. This contract would put the first year contract in place, and we have the opportunity for 4 option years following this process. So the baseline contract has $0 associated with it. Moving on to our 7th contract would actually be to fund the first year of that first year of the chip seal activities that would be performed by A1. And it would be in the amount of $1,068,488. And there are several roadway segments listed on in your memo, and that's where we plan on having them working this year. Item number 8 is to be able to do crack seal with our in-house crews. This contract is actually to rent 3 crack seal melters, so our in-house crews could use those to help do some of this preventive maintenance in advance. Yeah, just solely for the preventive maintenance, or if they're in advance for other activities. The rental cost for these 3 melters is $87,000, and that goes to Denver Industrial Sales and Services Incorporated. And the city's 9th contract is the second half of a contract or a grant award that I brought to you 2 months ago. We went through the federal discretionary grant process. It's 5339C for geeks that allow us to go and get discretionary grant funding to help us purchase vehicles. We put a grant application together with 2 vendors. One was Gillig, which is a contract I brought 2 months ago. This one is for New Flyer, which is our second partner. And this would allow us to purchase 3 hybrid buses to continue that hybrid bus hybrid that I mentioned previously. So with this contract, the FTA would be providing just over $1.7 million. RTA would be just over $1.1 million for a total of $2,860,666.86 to purchase these 3 buses. And I would like to take the opportunity to introduce John Hernandez. He's on Land's team at Mountain Metro Transit. And he's the one that's going to help us integrate these hybrid buses and oversee these pilots, along with other changes we make in our fleet. So if there's other specific bus questions that come up that either Land or I can't answer, we'll be asking John to step in to support us on that. So anyway, I'm happy to answer any other questions, and we would appreciate your consideration of these 9 contracts.
Any questions for Gail on the city's presented contracts?
Chair, just a quick question.
Craig first, and then
Yeah, on the rental of the crack seal melters, how does that work? Is that for a set period of time, or do you have specific projects that you're already going to use them for that amount of money?
Greg, that is a great question. I actually don't know the answer, and I don't think I have anyone on my ops team here to maybe help answer that. My guess it's really for the paving season. So I would expect from May 1st through October, November timeframe for them to be able to provide in-house maintenance activities.
Okay.
If you need more information, I'd be happy to follow up with you as well.
You know, a quick question, Gail, on the chip seal, do you have a rough idea of the unit price that you got on that contract? I couldn't see any information about unit pricing, $2 a yard, 3-ish. I was just wondering where
You
that
know,
is.
Dave, I apologize. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I
That's
know
okay.
we got very competitive pricing from A1.
Thanks. Thank you.
Hold on. My friend, I may have just phoned a friend. Oh, so to go back to Craig's question, 87,000 does cover a whole year's worth of rental for those 3 pieces of equipment. And I'm sure a friend will text me with, oh man, I love this. So depending on the size of the chip, the 1 1/4 inch was $4.13 a square yard. 2 3/8 chip was $4.18 a square yard. And a fog seal was 35 cents a square yard.
Wow. Yeah, fog seals used to be years ago a dime, and each of those were 2 to 3. So you know, prices have gone up understandably. So still well worth the effort. Though.
welcome to 2024. Right?
Thank you.
All right, any further questions for Gail? Your phone friend works. All right, all those, do I have a motion to accept the city's contracts as presented?
So moved.
So, thanks, Rich. Thanks, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Gail. All right, county.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Josh Palmer, County Engineer. The county has one contract to present to you today. This is a slight deviation from what we typically do for our annual maintenance contracts. We'll award via IFB, a single contract for whatever our approved budget amount is for that specific item. This year, in an effort to try to be more flexible and to get some more interest in our concrete paving program for 2024, we put out a statement of qualifications request, and we are requesting to award a aggregate not to exceed contract amount of $4 million to the 8 approved contractors. They're listed in there. They are a AA Construction, Full Tilt Construction, LSM Concrete, RME Limited, Olinick Enterprises, Lucky Dog Contracting, HCD Inc., and Concrete Experts. We had heard a feedback in the past from contractors who may not have availability or bandwidth to do, sometimes a very robust and aggressive paving concrete schedule in a limited amount of time. So we determined that if we put it out to multiple contractors approved ahead of time, there are qualifications, we could issue task orders. So the contract would be a not to exceed aggregate amount of $4 million, where we'll issue task orders to any one of these approved contractors. So that's what we're requesting today.
Sounds reasonable. Any questions for Josh? Seeing none online, I have a motion to approve the county's request.
Larry Tobias, move to approve the county's request as presented by Josh for the concrete maintenance for 2024.
Thank you, Barb. For a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Item number 7A, member governments, other transit reports. Sorry. That would be you.
Good afternoon, Chair, CAC members, Line Rail Transit Services Division Manager. In your packet is our regular monthly report. We are happy to see the trend, year-to-date trend on the fixed route, that our boardings per revenue service hours is trending up. So that is a sign that we would like to see, and we actually went into our records a little deeper, trying to figure out exactly which routes that we were seeing those increases, and it really was across the board. There is no one route that really stood out, that it's including higher ridership route 1 and 33 in Manitou Springs, as well as some normally considered lower ridership routes. So we're happy to see that trend. And in the transit highlight section, we included a couple pictures for you to see. With the vehicle shortage situation, we are trying everything that we can, including moving some of the retired Metro Mobility vehicle to support the fixed route service. 4 of those vehicles are tasked to operate the ZEP service in downtown Colorado Springs, and the rest of the smaller vehicles are dispatched throughout the system. One of the challenges for our riders is the difficulty to tell whether it's a Metro Mobility ADA vehicle or is it a regular fixed route bus. So we went through a lot of work, including design, painting, working with the maintenance shop. And in the packet, the first picture is the one that we are using to operate the ZEP service. And then the second picture, the purple one that we branded as mini, those mini buses that you will start seeing in our service. Those are the regular fixed route bus. It's not just to make them look nicer. It really provides a functional use to guide our customers. Also, we were very happy to report that we concluded our National Transit Database Reporting Audit. We received a zero finding audit on April 19th, and we were able to submit the final report to and we call it NTD National Transit Database ahead of the deadline of April 30th. So
I'm sorry, it sounded like you said a zero finding
zero
audit?
finding report, yes.
Wow, never heard of such a thing. Congratulations.
Thank
Wow,
you.
That's remarkable. Well
Thank
done.
you, Dave.
Good on you.
That's all I have and happy to answer any questions.
Great job, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are making good progress and keeping things moving with transit based on what you have. So thank you. I like what you're doing with the ADA.
Rick, can you turn on your microphone?
I like what you're doing with the ADA and combining your rides and reducing the number of hours, but increasing the ridership. Very nice job. That
Thank
takes
you.
a lot of management coordination.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Item 7B, a City of Colorado Springs letter of support for Defense Community Infrastructure Grant application.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of CAC, Gail Sturdivant again with the City of Colorado Springs. I'm actually going to be asking for PPRTA support on two grant applications. The first one is going to be for the Defense Community Infrastructure Program grant. This is a grant we're going to be applying for to pursue construction dollars to improve the interchange at Peterson Road and Platte Avenue, or US 24. You've supported us in the past. We have PPACG actually received a preliminary engineering and NEPA grant also from the DOD, and the city has been working on that on their behalf. We did go and obtain some congressionally directed spending to get this so it's ready to be shovel ready. So this grant application would be to get the construction dollars, which we estimate to be 15.3 million. And we're going to be asking for 10.7 federal wise. And then we have the local match. We'd be using our intersection improvements program funds for the local match. So we would appreciate your support on this particular letter and our efforts to go and obtain these federal funds. Any questions on that?
Are they gonna do a major rehab of that intersection or just kind of improve the flow of stuff through there?
So there actually would be taking, you know how it's very tight through there with Space Village Ave and the backups that happen in that area. The city's project that is in conjunction with CDOT and El Paso County would actually take those ramps terminate and turn them into roundabouts so they can get a lot more capacity and traffic flow through that area. And then there is a companion project on the base that would be funded. I don't know that funding is ever going to line up exactly right, but they would continue to take those improvements into Peterson space for a space, but we want to do our part on the outside, support our military installations.
Okay. You want to let's do them separately. So, any further questions or discussion on that grant application? Do I have a motion to approve the request for PPRTA support?
So moved. Richard Moore.
Thank you.
And I'll second that.
David, thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, not seeing any. All right, item 7C.
Okay, for the city's second letter of support is for a project underneath one of the newer federal programs. It's Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. PPRTA was very supportive of the city on their first application for the planning grant underneath that program. And we are proceeding with doing a safety action plan underneath that first grant. The next logical thing, and this is what we're going to be applying for, is a demonstration grant. We anticipate that underneath this project, we would be requesting $1 million with the local match portion of that coming from PPRTA on our roadway safety and traffic operations. So again, once again, we would appreciate PPRTA's support for this letter for the project.
Does this project include any lane dieting?
Well, they're demo projects that actually do multiple areas. So let me pull up the list because I knew someone was going to ask the question
Well,
of the proposals.
you may get asked that question at the board, so I thought maybe you might want to address it now.
Sorry, I closed the file. That was helpful. Let me open it back up. So it's gonna be some spot treatments where, and really what we're doing on these pilot projects, we actually document the pilot and the goals we're trying to achieve. So we can go through it, and that's what these would be doing. So one idea is to do the installation of temporary neighborhood traffic circles where we're trying to achieve traffic calming through the areas, raise sidewalks in areas where it makes sense, so we can get the pedestrians up at the same level as the sidewalk area. And then also it inadvertently acts as a speed hump, slowing vehicles down through the area. We're gonna be, we would be installing some speed activated flashing warning signs. And then we're gonna be looking for an opportunity to do a protected bike lane facility in that area, and then there is a potential for a temporary road diet.
I'm not the one against it. I'm just giving you some forewarning. So, okay, thank you for that additional information. Ed?
What does temporary mean? And
So
what does
typically
road
when we
diet
do
mean?
temporary, so we'll be using like the flexible delineators to basically either if it's a road diet, pull traffic in and if it's the bike lanes, we'd be designating bike lanes. I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit more about it, but it's really, instead of putting anything that's hardscaped in, is to use something that's a lower cost temporary situation, hopefully that gains the traffic pattern changes or safety goals that we're really trying to achieve. And then if they are successful, then we can go through and do more of a hardscape project in the future. If they're not successful, or we need to tweak and do a modification on the original plan, we still have the opportunity to go through and do so.
2 lanes to 1 with the center turn lane.
All due respect, I have the highest regard for the traffic staff, the technical work, the grant application that goes into it. I'm sure it'll pass without my vote. But I think some of the city's recent experience, I'm not sure if it was road dieting or bike lane reductions, restrictions, largely in the old North End, I think had and still do have some consequences and some maybe unintended consequences that I'm, I guess, just professionally opposed to. So I'll be opposing this one, if only from a standpoint of the city's experience with lane restrictions, bike lanes, and road dieting. I think still needs to be expanded a bit before I can wholeheartedly endorse
Well,
it.
and Dave, I would love the opportunity, either you and I or you and I and Todd, just to have a discussion, maybe offline to understand what your concerns are, because I would have to tell you, I'm kind of shocked to hear that you think there's an issue on the Old North End from what we're hearing from folks that live in the Old North End and the implementation of some of the projects we've done in that area. But I would greatly like to have your perspective. to
Yeah,
understand
I'd
what
love
your
the
concerns are.
dialogue,
So,
exactly. I know
Yeah,
that.
I
Thank you.
think that just on that same thing, man, Rich, the benchmark is research 2 lanes to 1 and 1 lane bike lane thing that, that as long as you're not proposing that. So, you Rich?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but just want to better understand that question of how long is, temporary. So what is the horizon or analysis timeframe that you're looking at before you make a decision to leave them in
Right,
place?
so that's a great question. So I would say that, and Todd, you may want to supplement, but I think it's ideal to get a minimum of 18 months worth of data. And it's probably better to have more data than not, to see if the changes, the safety goal that you're trying to achieve is actually being achieved.
Right.
Or to see if there aren't any other issues that come up. So for example, if you were going to have road diet, most times when we were considering road diets, we're actually looking at the existing traffic volume on the roadways today to make sure that the lanes or the reduced lane numbers would still be sufficient to move the traffic through the area. So that's one of the checks we're going to do up front. But let's say we go and do an implementation project of this safety demonstration project, and we find there's some other change or differing condition, then we may make a modification to the pilot, or we may abandon the pilot. So Todd, I'm going to turn it over to the traffic professional. Thank you.
Gail, you did a good job. Todd Frisbee, City Traffic Engineering. The concept of the road diet, lane reallocation, whatever you want to call it. It is a proven FHWA safety measure You know, just to give you an example, 50%, you can expect up to 50% reduction in crashes. Our experience in the Old North End, seeing over that kind of decrease in crashes on Cascade. We've seen we've seen average speeds greatly reduced on that street. And the people who live on Cascade actually, and Weber as well. It's like, thank you for doing that. So when we consider a road diet, what we look at the volume. When we say, right, and we look at a certain level of volume and say this road is a candidate for a road diet or a lane reallocation. So that's what we're looking at, you know, when we propose those, is that we're just not going to pick some random street and just like research. Yeah, and I would just encourage you, just block research out of your mind. Like, it's not even relevant. So what we're looking at would be on roads that are 4 lanes, possibly down to a 3 lane with a center turn lane. Those are the types of options we're looking for. And roads typically with, you know, less than 10 to 11, 12,000 vehicles per day, which can, you know, a lane reallocation can easily accommodate that level of traffic. So that's what we're looking at. And that would be probably 12 to 18 months of data and research to sort of see what that looks like.
Thank you. Thank you for that
Yeah.
clarity, Todd.
Yeah, I was just
Barb?
gonna say, you know, there probably are gonna be people that are opposed to it, you know, and to your
Absolutely.
benefit to make them understand that you're looking at it, you're gonna evaluate the data and then share the data.
Mhm.
You know, after you've done it, I think is the important piece of that in order to
Right.
convince
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, and one other thing that I think is going to be important, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Todd, but as he's starting to do these pilots and we're taking a little bit different approach on it, we're going to be able to have this data and demonstrate on future projects the actual benefits that can be achieved by the safety safety projects we're putting in place. So
It's a great opportunity, because a lot of times in the past when we've done it, when you do these kinds of projects, you're like, yeah, we think it's going to work, right? We have an opportunity to put it out in the field, test it, evaluate it, and come back and make a judgment.
I think a
Yeah.
pilot project makes it much more palatable than a change. So Barb, you had a question?
Had a question, Gail, your comment about, was it elevating pedestrian walkways? What's an example of that?
well, so we're actually looking at one on Hopeful Drive. It's in the Park Vista area, but this is an area where it's a residential collector that's in a residential area that's near a school that has a lot of people, a lot of kids that are crossing from the neighborhood over in that area. And so one of the things to slow folks down and to recognize that it is a crosswalk is to elevate that crosswalk to make it the same height as the sidewalk area. And essentially, as it goes across the roadway, you're essentially creating a speed table or speed hump to get folks to slow down and recognize that that is going to be a crosswalk for areas.
One example you could probably see on your way home, Barb, is that 31st and Highway 24 at Cimarron. Did CDOT put those in, or did you guys put those in?
At the corners there?
Yeah, on the right turns. Yeah, that's a raised crosswalk. CDOT put those in. City funded the design
It's going on.
effort,
Right.
right? Is that right? Yeah.
And that's the same.
I just did, I wasn't
Okay.
familiar with the concept.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are considered raised walkways.
Raised crosswalk.
Raised
And so what, there's a product out there that we've seen where you can buy a pin down kind of, this is why it's a demonstration project, a pin down kind of raised crosswalk that we could use to both enhance crossings and slow vehicles down. Great use in school zones, great use around in neighborhoods and on neighborhood and on trail connections.
So is that like a temporary speed bump?
Yeah,
kind of device?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, do I have a motion to, oh, I'm sorry.
I feel like I should recuse myself from voting because if the city gets this grant, my company may try to go after one of these projects.
Okay, all right, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the request by the city? Ed? Brandy?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, let the record note that Karen recused herself, please. Thank you. Oh,
And I'm voting
oh,
nay.
and that's right. You had nay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me make a quick note. All right. 7D, monthly change order and property acquisition report. It's information only. It's in your packet. Any questions? Gail's here to answer them. Seeing none online. Thank you very much. El Paso County El Paso County line item transfer for Highway 105. What a mess up there. But it's making progress.
I would disagree. I wouldn't classify it as a mess. I would, it's progress.
It is progress, that's for sure.
No, it's progress. Yeah, so the county's requesting a line item transfer. So the New Meridian Road US 24 project, you're all aware of that project. That project was going on, 12, 13, 14 years ago, and it was substantially complete a year and a half ago, close to 2 years ago now. We held on to the remaining funds in that project to account for, a punch list items, some landscaping issues that may come up. But we're finally through that, the closeout of that project. So we're requesting to do a line item transfer from that project in the amount of $333,420 from that project into the Highway 105, I-25 to Highway 83 project. And that will go towards overall the design construction costs, most likely for not for phase A. It'll probably go towards phase B, which we're finishing up design right now.
Okay. Any questions for Josh? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the county's request?
David Z, I'll also move.
Thank you, David. Second? Anybody?
Larry Tobias, second.
Larry, thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any against, anybody against? Okay, great. I was up there the other day in the through traffic lane, and there was a cement truck or a dump truck or something that was finishing unloading or doing something, and nobody knew which way to go, and the cones went in the way, and workers were scrambling around trying to figure out how to blend traffic going in opposite directions on one side of the road. It was interesting to observe.
I'm glad you made it out of there safely.
Yeah. All right, El Paso County change order and property acquisition report. Any questions for Josh on their report? Okay, not hearing any. All right, item 8, administrative actions. The report for recent board actions is in your packet. Any questions, speak up. Abstentions for voting. Rick, I guess you're going to cover this.
Excuse me in advance if I break.
So I think this was to clarify some discussion on how the vote works and what happens. So
Yes, the original question was was around abstentions from voting. And that was I addressed that last month and again here as number 3 in my memo. Because we unfortunately asked for the abstentions a couple of months ago. And in hindsight, shouldn't have done that. So, 3 to 4 started to feel good. And Carlos was correct. Last month, he said abstention is a non-vote. Therefore, you could have a 2-1 approval with 13 abstentions. So when he said that last month, he was correct. So that's the normal rule. There is in other states. Robert's rules allows for modifications of the usual basis for decision, which would, if that rule is adopted by the CAC, then abstentions would count as no votes instead of non-votes.
that's an option for you to consider. So, in summary, depends on how much you want to do with this. I laid out 3 options: take no action, continue the practice of voice voting and not asking for account of abstentions not otherwise offered due to a member's conflict of interest. Number 2, revise the rules for voting to declare that abstentions are no votes. 3, request that the board revise the CAC bylaws or take some other action. So, for further research, so what would you like to do with this?
Any comments or questions before I state my belief, David?
So I have one question. I've seen city council, sometimes elected boards of officials will simply leave the room without actually voting a deliberate affirmative abstention, if that makes sense. So all in favor, yes, all opposed, nay. And a certain individual walked out just as the vote was about to happen. So they, in essence, are not counted in the vote count. Is that a 4th possibility in your mind?
I think we would just go with the voice vote, and if there was any doubt based on the volume, then somebody could ask for a roll call. If it were a split vote, well, first of all, if they're unanimous and Rick Hoover was out taking a phone call, it's still unanimous of those that are in the room.
Right.
If it's split and somebody out of the room, then you go with the volume of noise that would be the approval. If the nays are significant, then somebody can ask for a roll call, and then the roll call would include or not include the person that was out of the room.
Which makes sense. I've also seen it, the people will leave to drop a quorum existing.
Yeah.
To force a delay or force a negative action on a vote.
Yes.
And again, that's kind of maybe a 5th side option as well, but
Rick?
Just a clarification. If you went with the no vote concept.
Yeah.
Then would Karen, for example, include yourself because of wouldn't that affect that?
Well, the special rule would make it a no vote. The standard rule,
And that would
it's a
be
non-vote.
That would be counterproductive too. I mean, she's voting no against herself.
Right.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I interpret it that way as well. And my preference would be to leave it as it is. It's a non-vote. So you've got the yeas, the nays, and the non-votes. And you can ask, because the board will typically sometimes ask me on our close votes where we have to actually take account, why did people abstain from voting? And so it's a logical explanation of either a conflict of interest or on the contractor, whatever the answer was. And so I would prefer for it to not count as a no vote, or that it's just a non-vote would be my preference. Brandy?
And I don't know if this was you, Jim, or somebody else last time, but somebody mentioned during last conversation with this that we've all been appointed to come here and have an opinion. And if they wanted a group of people to come sit in this room to listen to this information, to spend staff time, to have all of these entities here to not participate, that's a different conversation. We all went through a process to get here. We all, in my opinion, have a duty to participate. And I understand abstaining if there's a conflict of interest. And Jim, you hit the nail on the head. If there's a reason, then that makes sense why you're abstaining from a vote. If you don't want to vote, which never in my career of having to vote as an elected official, I couldn't even comprehend that. That is my job. You need to sit there and you need to vote. You are there to make a decision. If they didn't want a decision maker, they don't need to have an elected body. And I know that we're not elected. I know we're doing this out of the goodness of our heart. But I think really we're here to voice our opinions. We're here to have these hard conversations, which for the most part aren't very hard. Thank goodness we're mostly on the same page. But I agree that I don't think an abstention should be a no vote because then that completely changes the dynamic. But I do feel strongly that if you're here for a reason. We're here to have these conversations and we're here to make sometimes tough decisions. So I don't hope no one walks out of the room. I hope this doesn't turn into the federal government where we have a filibuster so we don't have a quorum, so we can't get roads built. But that's just my personal opinion. And I would say for all practical purposes, we don't need a change unless it becomes a practice of nobody wants to vote. And then I think the board really needs to look at the board members who are choosing to not vote and not participate. And I think it's incumbent upon them to make a change. But I don't think as this body, we need to do anything different.
Just 1 second, Dave. I wanted to, I have a sample data. I have one example of what you talked about where a person chose to walk out of the room so that they wouldn't have to vote yes or no because they just weren't there. And I questioned them about it. And the answer was they didn't want to be on public record opposing something or against something that would, and it was they didn't want to be pinned one way or the other against a subject, which takes me back to Brandy's comment. You're elected for a reason to be there. And I think that's a chicken way out personally, but use probably not the best language, but anyway, anyway, so it's up to us what we want to do. And do you have any other comment?
No, just my only question was to clarify then, procedurally, if we do nothing right now, the rule is as it currently sits, and assuming we do nothing in terms of a formal motion, set a procedure, a rule, if you choose, anyone here can, and Brandy, I agree 1,000% with your point. We're here for a reason. But if we choose to abstain, and we shouldn't, in my opinion, if you choose to abstain, that's simply a non-vote. That the numbers that constitute the quorum still, we still have a quorum, as opposed to walking out of the room when you can lose the quorum and you kill the whole vote. It's like pulling a fire alarm, like that would ever happen in a public session. But
I'll let Rick clarify because he wrote it down, but you're also sick, but it is irrelevant of the quorum. So we've got quorum, you can have the vote, but if you read number 7, which I think was written really well, you already have the quorum. Like who votes and who doesn't vote after that is a different conversation. But if we've established a quorum, after that, the voting just takes place and however it falls out, it falls out.
so I'm not sure I agree with that, because if you have a quorum by one critical person and one critical person walks out before the vote, you lose the quorum for the vote and the vote can't be held. Is that correct?
I don't know. That
Please.
sounds like you need more math then. I mean, at that point in time, we always established a quorum. And if they walked out of the room, it was a different conversation, but
Yeah,
technically they
yeah,
could
yeah, I'm
have,
not a
right,
Robert's rules
that's a
expert.
rabbit hole that I think Rick might
Yeah,
need
we don't
a
have to go
month
down
to
that
figure
rabbit
out.
hole. But my question really is, if we do nothing right now, the way it currently stands or sits is, I'll pick on Karen because it's lovely to see her here. She chose to abstain.
Yes.
I presume that's the same as recusing oneself.
Yes.
So the quorum stays. That's a whole nother discussion. It's simply not a yes vote or a no vote. It passes based on the numbers of the total votes. In the case of my example from myself 10 minutes ago, I chose to vote nay on the traffic calming road dieting item. I could have chosen to vote to abstain or to simply abstain and make sure it's abstain on the record. And still quorum runs through and the numbers would still be the same as it would be with a nay vote. Is that right?
Yes.
With an abstention would be counted the same in that example as a nay vote.
The total,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
total number of votes and non-votes would be the total number of people present in the room.
So no action is needed today necessarily, unless we wanted to change the rule to have an abstention count as a no. Did I get that right?
Currently, the standard practice in Robert's rules is abstention is a non-vote. It's not a negative unless you adopt a special rule that says abstentions are negative.
Well, I'm all for keeping the status quo.
And the status quo would be Motion is second, voice vote. Abstentions are not counted as a vote either way. And sorry, and majority of those voting would carry. If there's any doubt, if it's close in the sound of number of voices, then somebody can ask for a roll call vote.
So the total number of votes would be the total number of votes minus the abstention, so that they wouldn't even exist.
Right, the non-vote.
Ed,
Yeah, I'm in favor of status quo to start with, but something to clarify for me, say a voting member does step out of the room. Does that mean that an alternate is elevated? Which, if that's the case, would that change the whole dynamics of everything? You know,
If the
so,
alternate is available, yeah.
we'd still have the same number, but obviously it wouldn't be the same personalities casting the
Sure.
vote. So I don't think that would be good at all.
Yeah.
Oh.
I do want to push back on one thing that I heard, and that is, I don't think a recusal and an abstention are the same thing. In the case of a recusal, the person is obligated not to vote because they have some sort of a conflict, whereas an abstention is by choice. So I don't think you can say that a recusal is something that's going to count the same way or should be considered the same thing.
Further research for next month.
but for the purposes of our meeting here, I don't know whether Robert, I don't recall that Robert's addresses recusals, but for the purpose of our meeting here, in terms of how we count it and how we report to the board, it would be 3 against, 5, 4, 3 against and 1 recusal for work conflict, or would be the way it would flow up. It would be the way that I'd report it up. But I guess we could figure out in terms of, for our purpose here, do the two of those, for our purposes here, are the two of those the same? Fall in the same category, I should say, as a non-vote.
Be glad to research it for next month.
Okay, well, let's postpone this one then, just to be clear, since it was brought up, and let's clarify it so that we're all on the same page.
Okay.
Okay. All right, rescheduling January 1st meeting. Oh, Randy?
So as happened before, when we did our joint board meeting with the CAC and the board, we had this item on the agenda that said we had to approve or deny. Do we need to vote to table this?
The January 1st meeting?
The abstention from voting.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, we
Because on the
need to-
agenda, we're supposed to do something.
Yeah, let's, you're right. Thank you. So, do I have a motion to postpone, the Robert's rules on, voting? However,
I'll make the motion since I brought it
Okay.
up. I move that we table our abstentions from voting, vote/conversation to our June meeting. Is that enough time, Rick?
Yes.
June meeting.
Good, I'll second.
okay, Greg, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome, Carlos. Thanks for joining.
No abstentions.
Is it a recusal or an extension? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I had a schedule conflict, so I'm jumping in.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, rescheduling January 1st meeting. I say, bring your wine and let's have a meeting.
So my leaning is to Thursday the 2nd.
Any other feedback? Thursday the 2nd is on the table.
I do have one question, Rick. Didn't you indicate that if we looked at Thursday, that would be pushing you to get ready for the board meeting the following week?
It just means the board packet would not go out on Thursday, it would go out on Friday.
And you don't have a problem with that?
If the board doesn't,
They don't read.
Probably
till-
not.
They don't read it till the day before anyway, so.
Yeah.
I didn't say that. Just- whoever that person was. Brandy?
Last meeting, and I don't know how many times we've talked about this, I'm definitely in favor of January 2nd, just for those staff members that want to take time off and be with their families between Christmas and New Year. That way they don't have to come in that day before. They have a nice continuous break. And I think if Rick's saying that he's comfortable with his staff doing what they need to do after the first of the year, then I will respect that and support January 2nd.
Any other comments, questions? I have a motion.
Move approval to change our January 1st, 2025 CAC meeting to January 2nd, 2025.
Thank you.
I'll second.
And Barb, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. Staff report, staff field review report.
Just the results of my quarterly windshield survey of completed projects by the member governments for in this case, the fourth quarter of 2023. Be glad to take any questions.
Okay, hearing none. Agenda topics for next meeting. Anybody got anything burning they need to bring up or cover?
Mr. Chair, the only thing I would like to suggest for some future date is a brief discussion on in-person versus virtual. I'm still all in favor of virtual meetings, but I think at least on some occasion worthy of discussion, some physical attendance at this group at this point in this location, I think is much appreciated. I'd like to vote for or to suggest that we pick a number, 1 meeting a year, 2, 4, I don't know what the right number is. But I would like to think that at least every person shows up at least once a year physically to this location. But that would be a discussion item for future decision.
This is
Minimum number of
Cindy. Can I?
in-person meetings.
Cindy, hold on, Cindy, we can barely.
I thought we discussed this 2 months ago because it had been brought up to me and we decided on no action. Am I mistaken?
I think you're correct, Dave. You might have missed that meeting. We brought the topic up that you had mentioned previously. We brought it up. Unfortunately, you missed that meeting, but it was fully discussed, and Cindy was here, and the decision helped me, if I'm remembering incorrectly, was no action.
But I think we added to that a strong desire to attend in person when you can. A preference is to be here. And we understand a lot of us, a few of us are retired, but a lot of you still work and you have jobs and you're out of town and this kind of that stuff happens. But for every meeting for a year, never being in the room at all, I think is the other extreme. Okay. All right, any communications by any members of the committee you want to share with anybody else, all the group? Rick?
And your reports are at your place. And I have some takeaways over where I normally sit on the desk. Grab whatever you want. If you want more than what I have laid out there, then I can run upstairs and grab some more.
Great document to share with social media when people are whining and complaining. Bart?
I just grabbed some, but for Manitou, but do you distribute these officially to the communities? So
Yeah.
we don't have to carry these to the city or any. Okay. So these are for our personal distribution, correct? Okay.
Do you want to mention the fountain thing?
The City of Fountain earlier this year voted 4-2 in favor of pursuing the year-long process of going to their voters again this November of 24, where it failed with their voters in November 23. But recently they had a second council meeting and decided that they wanted to wait a while and skip this year. So that was a discussion item only. We're waiting for their council to have a formal vote, possibly with a resolution, and to let us know if the formal vote matches the discussion from about a week ago.
Okay, any questions, comments, thoughts? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for being here and taking time out of your day, and we'll consider the meeting adjourned. Thank you all.